So imagine you have this task of scrubbing through a list of company leads. You have thousands of them. They have their email addresses and phone numbers. But you need to identify how many of those leads does not have emails or how many does not have phone numbers. And I would imagine you going through them one by one. Wouldn't it be easier for Google Sheets to immediately tell you how many does not have phone numbers and how many does not have email addresses? In this video, I'll introduce you to three functions, count, COUNTA, COUNTIF, to do just that. Let's dive in. For example, the list that I'm talking about is somewhat like this, where I have a list of company with their email and their phone number. Well, the fastest way to identify how many items there are by just looking at the row numbers. And if I press Ctrl-Shift-Down, I can see that I have roughly around 100 companies because I have 101 minus the header. Okay. Let's go ahead and put the number of companies. We've seen that it is 100. And now to identify how many phone numbers that are in the listing, I just have to use the count function. And count function works this way. You count value 1, comma value 2, or we can use a count and a range. So since we want to count how many phone numbers are available, we are going to go to count C and drag. And we know that the last row is 101, so I'll just use 101, close parentheses, and press and enter. Now we know that there are 92 phone numbers in this listing, 8 of which are missing. Now let's go ahead and try the same thing with email. Equal count, open parentheses, and do B2, drag it down, and I'll just change this to 101, close, and enter. It's not working. It generates 0, but it is the same function and the same range. Why is that? Well, basically because the count function only targets numbers. It does not target anything that is not numbers. As you can see, it says return the number of numeric values in a data set. So if we want to generate a count of characters or non-values, then we need to use a different function, the COUNTA function. Here, it counts the number of values in a data set, meaning it will count how many information are available in your cells. So if I put B2 up until B101, I get 93. That means that there are 93 cells that has value in them. That's basically the difference between COUNTA and count. There is another variant of the count function that you'd find really useful. In the last video, we talked about the if function. Now, this particular function combines both count and if function. And this is how the function works. COUNTIF, then you specify the range and put in a criterion. So in this example, I would like to count how many apples there are in my lists. So I select the range, and we talked about locking the cell by pressing F4, comma, select our single criterion, which is apple. So if I press and enter, I should now know that there are 3 apples in the listing. If I drag this formula down, then I would be able to see that there are 3 bananas and 2 mangoes. So this is how we use the COUNTIF function. Here is a very real-life scenario on using COUNTIF. So you have a list of emails and you need to identify if any of those utilizes the .org or organization domain. So we can try to use a COUNTIF function evaluate cells and we end that with 101, our criterion is ORG. And it returns 0 because here our formula is being evaluated by Sheets to check if there are cells that contains just the ORG. But what we want is Sheets to identify if there are ORG domains, basically the last 3 characters of the email addresses. And to do this, we will use a wildcard. And this wildcard is an asterisk symbol. It's the one on top of your number 8 on your keyboard. A wildcard is defined as unlimited number of characters. And in this example, we're going to tell Sheets to evaluate all the cells here, all the characters before ORG, and just make sure that there are cells that contains the last 3 letters of ORG. And if we press enter, we can immediately see that there are 13 email addresses that are using the ORG domain. We can do the same thing for EDU or education. So if we do CountIF, then B2 to B101, identify if there are EDU, close parentheses, enter, we now know that there are 16 .edu domains. I hope you have learned something from this video, either by using Count, COUNTA, or CountIF. If you have any questions, comments, or topics you'd like to discuss regarding Google Sheets, comment them below. And if you found this video really useful, please do like and subscribe our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. All those links are in the description below. Again, this is Jasper from Right Job Solutions. See you in the next video.